weekends in June, but like.
Oh, good. Good. The video was just playing while I was in here. What happened there? That was strange. Oh, okay. Cool. Can you see the video screen there with the holding message? Ah. It doesn't have when Brooklyn was queer for you. Yeah.
Hi Joe, there's a seat toggle if you want to sit next to me.
What do you think?
How do you do that?
I'll just come here and
You can
if
see the
you,
trailer.
you know, if you hover over with your hand,
Oh no, I
it
could
should
see
go.
the trailer before. And
highlights,
thank
it's
you
it.
for the live stream, so we're live streaming now. Everything.
I didn't want to
Yeah.
like go too much in the front.
Right in the front.
This is a good seat. This is a great seat.
It is a great seat. I can work out how to sit in it. High five.
I wonder if look at the live stream.
Okay, I'm not getting the seat toggle. I think that's because I can't.
What about now?
Does it not work? Whoops.
How did you do it?
Try this one here. There's definitely a seat here. It says welcome, have a seat. If you put your hand here.
Ah, yeah.
Okay, I will.
Yay!
I'm sitting next to you.
Oh.
Might be because of
It's a lovely wheel.
Yeah,
Yeah, nice
they
one.
updated the skybox. It looks much nicer now. Because before it was like AI generated. Now it's
What's happening? I'm sorry for being the speaker. I'm not turning to something different. It's okay. I made it. Yay, I did it. I had some problem with the avatar, so I changed at the last moment and just got one.
It's better.
It had better be.
We'll see what Marion says when she gets here.
She talked to you? Of course.
Ready?
Careful, girls. Don't go spilling my secrets now. Grace needs to put a little pep in her step. And Laura needs to check her turnout. She's distracted. She's sleeping with that new costume.
My name's Nathan Anderson. I'm from UCanvas. Sorry for some of the tech issues we're having. We're just getting started on this, but thanks for all coming for this exciting event in this amazing place. Thanks to Amy, wherever you are, for hosting us. Thanks to Michael as well for all the tech support to get us up and running. So yeah, let me get started. I think the first order is just to introduce Kent By, who's going to be our moderator, and then the rest of the speakers. So come on down, Kent.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Really excited to have this conversation today around the When Brooklyn Was Queer. And so I'm going to go ahead and invite the rest of the audience members, or the rest of the participants down from the project to actually come on down on stage. And so, yeah, and I do the Voices of VR podcast and cover a lot of what's happening in the space of immersive storytelling. And so very excited to hear a little bit more around what they've been working on here. So Hugh, why don't you come down next to me and scoot up? There you go. Okay. And then just move over just a little bit more.
All right.
There you go. Perfect.
Elliot, if you scoot over a little closer to Yasmin. Yeah. I think we're
Okay. So, yeah, so I'm going to have each of you just kind of introduce yourselves and what you did on this project when Brooklyn Was Queer. So we'll start with you, Hugh.
Hi, thanks, Kent. And thanks, everybody, for joining us. This is really exciting. I am the author of the book, When Brooklyn Was Queer, and in this project, I am mostly a loving reference. I'm so excited to be here, and I know absolutely nothing, and I am honored to be joined by all the folks on this stage. So thank you.
All right. Well, I love that. I would actually call you a treasure trove.
Yes.
And the
I like
source
that.
of all
Thank
our
you.
inspiration. Yes. So I'm Yasmin Alayat, and I'm the director on When Brooklyn Was Queer. And in general, my work is in XR for the last 10 years, and really excited to be here. And thank you, Agog, for hosting us, and looking forward for this panel.
Hello, I'm Elliot Mitchell, and my role in this project's technical director. I've also spent the past 10 years working pretty much exclusively in XR and games and experiences sort of like this. Yeah, and in my role as technical director, I do a lot of the technical aspects like programming and art and stuff like that. Hand it over.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michaela Marino Lerman, and I am the creative movement director of the project, and I am all the tap dancers that you are about to see. I represent them in physical form.
And Marion.
And Marion, who is a tap dancer too.
Hi, everybody. My name is Wadua Wali. I'm with New Canvas, and I am the producer, showrunner for this project. And we're really excited to be here, and can't thank Agog enough for letting us host our event in this space. I really love the fact that they are just leaning into community, and really this project is about community. I mean, it started off as just a fun thing that we're gonna do, but just all of a sudden, things just got ratcheted up quite a bit. So we're really excited to be telling the story that Hugh has just based on Hugh's treasure trove of work that he's done. I mean, he's got archives for days, and so we'll be able to tell stories for days. But we're starting with this project, and so we're really excited to give you a first look of what we've been up to.
Awesome. And so I noticed, Hugh, that this was based upon a book that you wrote, When Brooklyn Was Queer. So maybe you could just give a bit more context for the book that you wrote, and kind of the stories that you were trying to tell of going back to like 1896 into the late 1800s, and what kind of stories you wanted to really highlight into queer history.
Yeah, absolutely. I studied queer history when I was in college in the 90s. I was a women's studies major, actually. And one of the things I noticed even back then was that so many of the books, if they covered more than one kind of queer person, like if they weren't just about gay men or they weren't just about lesbians, the coverage was really spotty. It was also really white all the time. It was mostly upper class folks. I mean, there are a lot of reasons for this. Those are the easiest histories to access, the easiest archives to reach, the easiest histories to tell. But when I started writing When Brooklyn Was Queer, well, when I first started doing it, I was actually doing a live exhibition. I was curating these museums around the country called the Pop-Up Museum of Queer History. And I was so excited to do Brooklyn because my family's from New York. My parents are from the Bronx. I grew up in the suburbs, but I live in Brooklyn now. And I wanted to tell a different kind of story, one that was more diverse, more intersectional, more realistic to American queer communities today, that looked at all of these different roots, all of these different identities, not just who we are now, but who we were then and how one thing became the other thing. And I realized I could track all of that through Brooklyn, the city that I loved. And so I spent 10 years researching this queer history because just like the queer history of Brooklyn has never been told until recently, nobody cared about Brooklyn at all. And Brooklyn history just wasn't told very well either. And so this was kind of a love song for both the queer community and Brooklyn, my favorite borough in the city. And it took a long time. So I'm really delighted and excited to see it getting this future life and this embodiment that it could never have, because I love these characters. These drag kings that you saw a little taste of in the teaser are real people who had these incredible performing lives in the 1800s in New York. And we have, of course, no video of them, almost no photos of them, no recordings of them. And
No
so seeing
social
them come to
media.
life like this is amazing.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's right. No social media, sad.
Yeah, and so maybe from your perspective, you can talk around like, you wrote the book and then what happened after that in terms of like, who came to you, or how did translating the work that you did into this research into queer history and Brooklyn history, what were the first steps after that then it's to get translated into this VR experience?
It's been a couple of steps to get here. We had a lot of different ideas. We thought about film, we thought about television. I have to admit, I did not think about VR because I don't know anything about VR, but we were looking at podcasts. We were looking at just different ways we could tell this story because, as Wadua said, there's so much story here and so much archive. So when we were looking at film and TV projects, we were kind of casting about for different ways we could handle this. And Wadua actually came to us and suggested looking at it through VR because she has so much expertise in this world and knows all the right players. So it was really her vision that even started us thinking about this. And it's been a really exciting ride watching it come together since then.
I really have to thank you. I appreciate that. This project just feels like so much community that's built in, because if it wasn't for my good friend Jordan Smith at Pageboy, who works alongside Page, just bringing this for this project. I mean, this basically going back to what Hugh was saying. I mean, like just in traditional film and TV, it's a different climate, and so trying to get things, diverse stories made and told has been difficult. And so we were actually sitting down for lunch, probably 2+ years ago, and just talking about stories and just the frustration that they were facing trying to sell, get interest in the TV pilot, and some of the other pieces of this IP. Because as Hugh mentioned, it's that we're talking about podcasts, we're talking about this VR experience, because there's so many outputs of this story. But I was like, well, let us tell this story. I mean, I think we can do a good job in VR, and we don't have those same guardrails and roadblocks, and it'll just give us the opportunity to really do something creative. And so through Pageboy and MA Productions, we all collaborated, and New Canvas is picking up the gauntlet to drive the VR piece of the story, and in collaboration with Pageboy and MA Productions to keep pushing the rest of the IP out into the world.
Awesome. And we'll just kind of also go down the line here. I'd love to hear from both Yasmin, Elliot, and Michaela, how each of you got started onto this project and what drew you to the project. And yeah, just love to hear a little bit more context as to, how you see the When Brooklyn Was Queer.
Yeah. Well, I was brought on by New Canvas I guess a year ago now. I'm trying to recall exactly.
Yeah, we had a
It's been
writer's
about a
strike in between. It's like
right, yeah,
it's
before the
been
writer's
Wow.
strike. Exactly. Thanks for the reminder. Yeah, I got a copy of Hugh's book, and I was just I think it was just like I didn't have to go far in reading the book. I was just like, of course I would do this project. This is, you know, it's one, I live in Brooklyn. I felt like I was discovering, you know, my backyard all over again, and where I live, and such an important part of American history. And a lot of my work, I like to focus on unacknowledged history or reclaim untold histories or unknown histories, and so it just felt very aligned with you know, my body of work and what I'm interested in. And it's been a journey, you know, with Wadua and then building the team. And I can pass it on and let everyone explain how they became a part of it.
Yeah, I was approached maybe last summer, I think by Yasmin. We'd collaborated before on The Changing Same, and I picked up a copy of Hugh's book also and read it, and instantly met Wadua, and instantly was super interested in telling these stories in this medium. And it was personal for me in that my family is also from Brooklyn, and actually I had, like, my grandfather worked in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, which goes back to some of what Hugh wrote. And I'd actually also worked previously in the year in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, being technical director on Queer Skins by Angel Soul. And so, again, this storytelling, this sort of arc is definitely something that I've been participating in for a while now, and trying to, like, tell these stories and put them out to the world.
Oops.
Michaela?
I signed on to the project kind of around the holidays this past in 2024, and was, you know, immediately excited by the project. And I'll echo the sentiments of Hugh and Yasmin as well, that you know, the very exciting factors were, one, I am also a born and raised New Yorker, and I love also telling kind of and learning about unknown histories, and telling the lesser told stories of the world. And then also any opportunity to, one, commemorate tap dance and then at the same time bring it into the future was kind of a unbelievable kind of knockout punch right there, that we could both step into the past and the future at the same time. And you know, tap dance history is also American history, and very immersed in the stories that are a part of Hugh's book. And I'm just very happy to integrate those stories and integrate the art form that I represent in this amazing new setting and in this amazing new way.
Nice. And oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was actually going to say, I mean, like, maybe just throwing it back to Yasmin, because I mean, we know the story. We've been working on this for a little while, and we know that this is based on the book. But maybe if you can talk about the pilot and really the teaser. I mean, like, just kind of set up the teaser that we're about to see.
Oh, sure. Is that okay? Can talk a little bit about the slice we're doing? Yeah, of course. Yeah. So we're actually, you know, the book, Hugh's book is very comprehensive and covers many decades, and we are focused specifically for this project, the full pilot on the late 1890s. And our story, and Agnes Borinsky's not here, who's is an amazing playwright, and apparently a friend of Hugh's, which we didn't realize when we brought on. I didn't realize when I brought her on to be the.
I was so excited to see her name on the list.
Yes. She's writing our script for the pilot, and Basically, the VR experience is interweaving 3 specific stories together, and we're focusing on 2 drag kings of the time, Florence Hines and Ella Wesner, and then Loop de Loop, who was this fearless, fully actualized trans woman in Brooklyn at the time, and basing our characters on these 3 characters and interweaving them through. And the way we're telling this story is inspired very much by how the theater at that time was an act of resistance, an act of creating a future, and the possibilities that they wanted to create. This is at a time what they were doing is revolutionary, and so we were so inspired by that the theater and the show is our kind of another character, and we're telling the story as a show within a show. So we're telling their stories. We're going to tell the larger story through these kind of 3-act vaudeville performance, through variety acts and other type of sleight of hand that we can do with theatrical metaphors and so forth. And so that's the main creative conceit. And just specifically to speak to the prototype, we are in development, and so we're still very early in our creative process. And for the prototype, we wanted a little vertical slice as we further fundraise and further develop this to really showcase the heart and soul of what we're trying to do with the creative approach here. So we wanted to show our theatrical world, the musicality, the performances, introduce you to one of our main characters. So Marion, who you'll see in the teaser, she's based on Florence Hines. And we wanted to also kind of start hinting how our world itself is magical and not totally based in reality. And we're trying to hint at a lot of these different things in this very, very short teaser, just to give you a sense of the direction we're going.
If I could just for 1 second say a little bit about Florence Hines, because I think a lot of people don't know much about her. I certainly didn't when I started this research. And she's one of the most important performers of the 19th century. She is the highest paid woman of color on the stage in the 19th century. She was the lead in something called the Creole Show, which is the first show that presented Black artists on the stage as artists. Otherwise, before this, they were presented as like simple folk doing what came naturally to them. But minstrel shows, and she is the first woman in one of these shows to be the master of ceremony. So not only is she in one of the most important shows in the kind of history of Black performance in America, but she's the center of it and the first woman to be the center of one of those shows. And yet, when I did this research on her, there is only one image of her in all of existence, and no one is sure how she died, when she died, or even necessarily where she was buried. So I think that tells us both how important Florence Hines is and how important the work this team is doing in getting the story, which has been totally erased, out there into the present and the future. So thank you.
Yeah, and I wanted to just follow up on that point of like this kind of history being erased, because we're in the midst of a larger context right now where we have the current administration in the United States who is actively like memory holing certain LGBTQ plus IA parts of history, scrubbing any mention of any transgender history specifically, but also just generally. I'm just really struck by, like, if you were to try to potentially write this book 5 to 10, 15, 20 years in the future, it feels like we're in this stage right now where these types of histories are going to be harder to tell as time goes on if there continues to be this type of erasure that's happening. So Hugh, I'd love to maybe start with you and just hear how you see the current context of what's happening right now and how When Brooklyn Was Queer is fitting into this larger context of, capturing, preserving some of these histories.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's an essential point to raise right now. It would be very hard to publish this book today. And in fact, I'm already, for the last year, I've been experiencing this. I've been told that there are no more university gigs for me. My speaking agent said that they basically all shut down. People are afraid of using any kind of money connected to the federal government or any attention. I work a lot for the Department of Education in New York City. I write a lot of the queer curriculums and stuff. They are very afraid of what is going to happen there. I have been told from several places that they can no longer nominate me for awards because they're afraid of the kind of attention that will bring to them. I mean, this has been shutting down for a while. Last year, I spoke to a bunch of folks at Invisible Histories who collect queer histories in the South, and they told me that they were no longer telling people to give their materials to universities because even university archives are not safe anymore. Things are being purged, or or if they're being kept in the archives, all the queer tags are being removed from them in an effort to protect them from being purged, but it makes it impossible to find them. And so I think the context for me here is that we are hitting this incredible inflection point where either this history's become part of commonly accepted American history that we all discuss, share, and celebrate, or they get erased and destroyed the way the Trump administration removed any mention of transgender people from the very Stonewall Monument website, right? This is an essential moment for both queer pasts and queer futures. And that's why I love that this project kind of sits at the middle of both of those things.
Oh, sorry, my headset says the battery's low. I'm sorry, 1 second. my
Technical.
I may disappear. Sorry about that.
Oh, no.
My headset says it's plugged in. Let me just try to
why
plug
don't
it in
we-
again.
Why don't we
Yeah,
roll the-
maybe.
Yeah. we
Yeah,
can do the
before
trailer
I just want to see if there's any other follow up for. I got the
Well,
click that
you
it's starting
speak
now.
very eloquently about the urgency of the moment. I think if I can hand the baton off to you.
Yeah, this team is incredible. I mean, we were working through the holidays and through fires and through all kinds, any manner of all the things that have happened in this 2025. Get this prototype ready for a grant that we were applying for on the 7th, and it was like we've had tunnel vision this whole time. I've tried to have tunnel vision because it's just too scary out there. And when I looked up from when we shipped that off, and instead of being able to celebrate it, I saw the headline about the Kennedy Center and the whole team being gutted, and it was all it just like struck me as like, wow. And that part of the impetus was that that there were drag shows that were being performed and that was going to stop. And I'm like, how do that's interesting, because we're creating this whole body of work about drag and trying to push this forward, and we're actively being erased right now. And so to me, all of a sudden, it wasn't just about it's not just about telling a story anymore. It seems like we're in this moment of we're trying to preserve this history that's actively being erased. And so I just keep saying, like, let's keep going, because in 2 years we could be banned. So like we have to tell this story, and this moment is now. And it's now just not just about, like I was saying at the beginning, not just telling a cool story based on this book that we love by Hugh. It's about it has become activism as well.
And before we show the teaser, because I want to show the teaser and then we'll have more technical breakdown. Hugh, I want to just maybe have you set the context for the place and time of this late 1890s, like with the tap dancing, like what was happening there, just so that we have a bit of a sense of the types of inspirations point that you're leaping off of to tell the story of Brooklyn is queer, when Brooklyn was queer.
Absolutely. This is the moment in the 1890s when Brooklyn and Manhattan become one city. We get a unified New York. Until this, Brooklyn was a separate city, and it has its own world. It has its own theater. It has its own artists. It has its own performers. And of course, people go across the water from one to the each. But Brooklyn was known as the second city of the empire in this moment, right? It's huge, partially because the Erie Canal had come in a few decades before and rerouted all trade in America through Brooklyn. So Brooklyn really is one of the most exciting, adventurous places. And when it comes to theater, Manhattan has the kind of like upper class theater, the folks coming from England who are presenting like Shakespeare and full-length dramas. It also has vaudeville. Everywhere has vaudeville. But Brooklyn is the center for vaudeville because Brooklyn has Coney Island. Brooklyn has downtown Brooklyn, where there's all of these theaters right along the waterfront. So this is kind of one of the most exciting happening worlds in the country. People are coming and going every single day. And what makes it in Brooklyn spreads throughout the world. They take train cars, sometimes as many as 7 train cars full of scenery and props to take a single show like the kind of one you'll see today around the country. So this really is where national culture gets its start, on the waterfront in Brooklyn in the 1890s.
My job.
Perfect. Awesome. Let's go ahead and roll the clip again, and then we'll come back and talk more about the kind of technical aspects of it.
But then again, so am I. It's getting there, don't you think? My girls are all professionals. Still isn't actually a real theater. Did I say that? It's a theater of the mind. Your mind. We're booked. And for tonight, at least, we're taking over. In a couple of hours, there'll be crowds all up and down here. People selling all kinds of things. Tickets, food, fortune, themselves. A little bit of love and sugar. It's 1896, baby. Coney Island, New York. The future's here. But I guess I have to introduce myself, don't I? Do I have to do everything around here? The legendary Marion Hines, at your service. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and...
All right, welcome everybody else, everyone back up on stage. So Yasmin, I wanted to ask you first, as we just watched this, because I saw in some of the promo material that there was, obviously you're coming from like volumetric capture and depth kit, and you have kind of like these avatars, but are you doing like full-on volumetric capture? Maybe just talk around like what we saw here, maybe a stand-in for something that's going to be a little bit more fully developed in terms of the different types of visuals that we might see in the final product.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as I mentioned, this is still in development. So, we are working within constraints of when you're in development. And so just to speak a little bit of, for those who might not know what volumetric capture is quickly, it's just a way of capturing human holograms or human performance in 3D. And, it was very important for this project that, and part of, for how we imagine the full pilot is capturing authentic human performance, specifically for our lead characters, Marion and we always knew though that we would be needing to combine techniques in general. So while we want volumetric capture for our leads, we always knew there was going to be a mix of VFX or motion capture, specifically because we're going to have a lot of dance and a lot of moments where we need so many characters and a chorus and things like that. And so we knew we were going to always kind of play with both. I would consider this a little bit of R&D as someone who, for me, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but maybe me and Elliot, because we've done many projects in volumetric capture. For me, I haven't done much in motion capture, so it was a little bit of learning the workflow and a little bit of R&D, which is already part of the iterative process when we're doing something new. And obviously, you can speak more on a technical level about what that we're doing there. But I'll stop there. But that's there's a lot to within such a little teaser. Even though it's only a minute or two, there's a lot of elements that are happening here that we could speak to that are pretty cool.
And Elliot, I'm wondering if one of the things I noticed was just the lighting, and I don't know if you were like doing dynamic lighting or just changing the textures, or I think lighting ends up being a real challenge on the Quest platform, and you had some really beautiful lighting effects here. But I'm wondering if you could speak on the lighting or any other kind of technical hurdles that you had to overcome on this project.
Right. Yeah, developing for the Quest and any kind of lighting is definitely challenging. What we wound up working with an environment artist, Emmy Yupa, who's not here today. But Emmy did the actual the lighting of it. I set up systems for it, but what we wound up doing is slightly technical. We used this new system in Unity, these adaptive probe volumes. And so basically we baked a bunch of lighting, and we were I wrote some scripts and stuff to be able to blend between baked lighting scenarios. So the baked lighting means the lighting's not dynamic, it's static, and things move through the space in the lighting. So I think we only have one real-time light in the piece. Everything else is baked, and it's set up through a timeline, and we're definitely pushing the bounds of what Unity could do. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I think when Yasmin and Wadua were, and I were going over what's this thing gonna look like, or what is it gonna be, and also Agnes. I kept on throwing flags up in my mind when we're gonna have like all these lights and dancers, and it's gonna switch between all these scenarios and everything. But yeah, we figured it out, and I don't believe I've seen anything done like this specifically on a quest before, so kind of exciting in that way. I just wanted to clarify one other thing that Yassine brought up. We did motion capture, we did not actually put volumetric capture in this prototype. That's something we want to do. It was just out of scope for the amount of time that we had.
This was our throwaway R&D, or our quote unquote throwaway. We just really wanted to push things and try and figure some things out. And one of the things that we were also and we were figuring out the technical pieces and what we could get away with, especially given some of the limitations of certain platforms, but also in terms of like how do we bring performance and bring this to life. And I'm grateful to everybody on this team that just brought it, but I'm always grateful for people who bring new things into my knowledge. And so when we originally approached Michaela about doing doing the choreography for the dancers, and I know in my mind, in my flat mind, flat earth mind, it was something very different. And not only did she kind of help push us in terms of like what that performance could be, but also in terms of making sure that the pieces, because again, we ultimately want the pilot to reflect real human and be as authentic as possible. So that's why we will, we'll see people, we'll do volumetric. But with this, it's still, the performance just comes alive and just kind of complements all the other things, the technical pieces and all the visual things that we see. But anyway, that's my setup. Throw it to Michaela. Take the bite.
Thank you.
Yeah, Michaela, did you want to elaborate a little bit more about your experiences of, being embodied in all the equipment to be transformed?
And wearing the mocap suit, like a
Yeah.
tap dancing in that thing.
Yes. I want to give a quick shout out to La Janae, who has brought me into this project, or recommended me, who I had a motion capture experience with about a year prior, and that was my second time doing motion capture. Another time was for a science experiment for a lab. They were studying impact on the body, but tap dancing in motion capture is a lot like this brand new experience for me today. It just opens up a whole new world of possibilities and ways to imagine movement and ways to express movement in unconventional spaces. So it's very exciting, but however, as you saw, we thought we'd be able to duplicate it, but I wound up playing each dancer that you saw. So I wound up doing that routine about 9-10 times to make sure that each body was represented as an individual, so that you would get a very authentic feel of a little bit of nuance and a little bit of difference that would be natural for an ensemble of dancers.
And Lajane, our artist, she made sure that we had different body types, and then Emmy and Elliot were doing different skin tones. So we were, like I said, our goal is authenticity. So even in this prototype, we wanted to cheat that a little bit.
Yeah,
Can I speak a little bit? I just wanted to add, because we haven't talked about the composition at all, and part of the team with the sound and music, which you can't appreciate in watching it as a 2D. You have to really be in the headset to really appreciate the immersiveness of it. I just wanted to mention, so our composer Chanel Krishlo, who and our sound artist Matt McCorkle created this composition, and then Matt spatialized it and layered it with additional sounds to really create this kind of surrealist theater space. But I wanted to say, shout out to what Chanel created this composition that was really in conversation with Marion's VO, and we hope that comes across. But not only that, it was designed and created to make space for Mikhail's choreography as well and movement. And so the footwork, the sounds of the footwork, the composition, the VO, all of this is in conversation together to drive the piece. I just wanted to give them a shout out as well.
Yeah, no, that's real. I mean, because it was like, okay, we can't do this part until we've got the music, and then Chanel killed it on the music, and which she based on Agnes's words, So the composition came together based on what the words on the script, and then we just continued to build and build on that. I mean, it was just a symphony of creativity here.
Yeah, and Hugh, I wanted to bring you back in to speak around like the location of Brooklyn, because in the teaser we just saw, there's this line that says we're in the theater of the mind, which ends up being a little bit more abstracted visual representation. And I'd love to hear you maybe elaborate on some of the other like physical, tangible places that may be tethered to, or if there's going to be other locations that we're going to be taken to over the course of When Brooklyn Was Queer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Coney Island has such a wide variety of spaces in it, both in this particular moment in the 1890s and as we travel through the decades. The first amusement parks in America opened there, and all of these inventions and excitements around theaters and around entertainments. It's kind of where men and women coming out of the Victorian age first start to really get to socialize with one another and go on dates. So it's this really exciting place with all of these different, from like really dirty bars that are disgusting and disreputable and dangerous and violent, all the way up to the highest and most fancy theaters you can imagine. But we go way beyond that in When Brooklyn Was Queer, and we're touching all of the waterfront, because that's where the earliest queer history in Brooklyn is. And Brooklyn has over 20 miles of working waterfront. So it's everything from Brooklyn Heights, where you have these absolutely gorgeous mansions that are built for these really famous folks in the 1800s, some of whom we'll see in When Brooklyn Was Queer in the 1800s, and then their houses in the 1900s become the homes of some of the most incredible and important artists of the 20th century. We'll see Carson McCullers and Gypsy Rose Lee and W.H. Auden and all of these folks who made 20th century culture. We'll see them up in Brooklyn Heights, and then we'll hop on the water and we'll see Walt Whitman talking about his poetry with the laboring men on the docks, because it is an important waterfront with ships coming from around the country. We'll see the first tattoo parlors and Chinese food restaurants, which of course opened up in these disreputable waterfront areas because there were Chinese sailors and cooks coming through. So they're working in Coney Island and they're working down in downtown Brooklyn. We'll see Sand Street, which is supposedly known as Sailor's Heaven before it gets destroyed in the 1950s to make way for a bunch of housing. We'll see all kinds of really exciting places. The brothel that became the biggest scandal in America during World War II, when supposedly Nazi spies were pumping sex workers for information. Of course, none of it turned out to be true, but it was a huge scandal that dominated the headlines and the newsreels for weeks and months on end during World War II. So we're going to see all over Brooklyn, but Coney Island is a real special heart, so it has a special place in the show.
And I do want to say that that Hugh's book, it starts in the late 1850s and it goes through 1969. I deliberately wanted to lean into this moment, and it skips a little bit ahead of 1850s because the Brooklyn is already on the map. It's starting to have some sheen. The Brooklyn Bridge is open, and so it's about possibilities, and it's about celebration, and which again, was just the wake up call of like getting this prototype done, of like creating this project that's celebrating and proposing a world of possibilities, and all as we're seeing so many windows and curtains closing in our real lives. It's just an interesting place to be with this project.
Yeah, and I will say this is also the moment where our modern ideas about what it means to be gay or lesbian or transgender, those are all coming into focus right now. So the people that we're seeing and the places that we're seeing, they matter because they existed and they were real, but they also matter because they're the roots of everything we are today and what we're experiencing. And so it's just really special to get to see them come to life like this for me.
Very cool. I want to ask a couple of follow-on logistical questions around the production and where it's at, and we'll be opening it up to the audience to ask some questions. But Yasmin or anybody else, I'd love to hear like where's the project at? Is it still? It sounds like it's still in production. Is it searching for funding? Is it in the post-production phase, pre-production, production? Yeah, I'd just love to hear like where it's at and when we are hoping or expecting to see like a timeline for when folks can see the full experience, and also what you might need in terms of things that you are still looking for to kind of bring it to a close.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure between Wadua and I, we can share. We are in development phase, so we're still developing the full pilot, which is the 20-minute experience. So the art direction, script, things like that, and obviously actively fundraising, and hopefully this teaser is would help propel that. Wadu and I were at Venice at the production bridge in August and had a lot of great interest and conversations with potential partners. So I'll hand it off to you, Wadu, to share whatever you'd like to share.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's the gist of it. I mean, like, so this is the time of building and making, like leaning into community, finding, it's closing out the funding to finish the project so we can go into full production. Also, like our goal is for this to be seen by as many people as possible. So, looking at ways that we can, ensure that it's not just about who has a headset and who doesn't, or a particular type of headset. So now is the time we're having all those conversations. So if you're out there and want to have those conversations, reach out to us.
Very cool. And is there? I'll give any sort of final thoughts before we open it up to the audience. If you want to share anything else around the project, yeah, Wadula, go ahead.
You're just taking a page from Yasmin, because I realize that we've been kind of slowly rolling things out around this prototype, but definitely want to give a shout out to Matt McCorkle, who did an incredible job with their sound, with Lajne McMillan, who is our mocap artist, with Emi Yupa, who is the air, who is everywhere, doing everything with 3D design, to all these folks on stage here with us. And who else am I missing? Oh, Agnes, of course.
Chanel and Agnes.
Chanel out there. And so, yeah, I just, want to give so much thanks to all of them for their creativity, their passion, and just really putting it in. I mean, their DNA is completely in this prototype, and it's a beautiful thing.
Awesome. And any other, Elliot or Michaela, Hugh?
Yeah.
Before we open it up?
Go
ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Elliot.
Just want to say, like, Wadua mentioned that that sort of exploring avenues for this project to be seen, accessibility and all such. So one thing that I made sure in developing this is that we can actually publish to many different platforms, or we have options. We're not like locked into anything at the moment. So to ensure that this can be experienced by as wide a group of people as possible, which also keeps it sort of from disappearing. If one platform is just like, we don't like these people anymore, and there's options for it to persist on, which I'm excited about. Having the ability for it to persist as opposed to just being shut down by like an arbitrary CEO's decision somewhere.
Nice. Okay. Well, Michaela, did you seem like you jumped in for a second? I don't know if you wanted to say anything.
Oh, I'm pretty much okay, and I really just echo what Elliot just said. And just here as an advocate for the dance as well, but I want to see the history persist as it's been mentioned. Florence Hines was the highest paid performer at the time. These stories need to be known, they need to be told, and they need to empower especially young people of today to maintain in the face of the storm that's on the way. to persevere, you know, and be inspired by these historical figures that are the, you know, path makers of the lives we live today.
Awesome.
Nice. Well, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions. See if you have any questions from the audience. Yeah, Maria.
Hi. Yeah, my question is actually around sharing the project. So yeah, I'm Maria. I curate Rainbow Semester Festival along with Joe here next to me, and also actually with Fangs, who's on camera live streaming this event. And there is actually a really, really huge LGBTQIA plus community here in VRChat. Just last year alone, 30% of our selection were actually LGBTQIA plus artists from within VRChat, because we run our festival for a full month, the month of June each year in VRChat, and then we also have a physical festival in London for a couple of days. So yeah, I'm just wondering whether you might be potentially considering like an extension of the narrative, maybe bringing it here to social VR, maybe even like some live tap dancing performance, because there's also a really big dance community here in VRChat. So yeah, curious about you know, whether one of the platforms you are considering, other than maybe Meta or Steam, could also be VRChat and connecting with the LGBTQI plus and the transgender community here, dance community. There's a lot of exciting people here who I think would love to hear your story.
Thank you for that. I mean, yeah, it's I had another conversation with actually Liz from Venice a couple weeks ago, and I mean, VRChat has been on my radar for a couple of years from the pandemic, but it's always been a kind of a thing that's been foreign to me. But I'm leaning into it more, and that's kind of why we wanted to start off with having this conversation here, because we know that there is community here, and so absolutely, then we would love to talk to you. Thank you.
Sure. That'd be great.
Yeah, we have there's a long.
Actually, it's Teresa Long, but that's very funny.
Oh, there's a, sorry.
And it is there's a long. It's long but longer. Hi, Ken. Thanks.
Go ahead, sorry, Teresa.
I followed your podcast. Thanks so much. And Yasmin, we know each other, and some of the team. I've not met you, but I'm very impressed by the work. Congratulations. This question is more for Yasmin and for Elliot, but also for the rest of the cast. And it builds upon what previous people were asking about in terms of distribution and what you're thinking. I mean, I'm in my Quest 2 right now, and I understand, right, like it could be on that. You're developing in Unity. Would you be able to share a little more what you're thinking in terms of both the user interaction as well as, right, could it be on Steam? Is it like you're building in Unity, but then it's going to be exported into different formats? Because I'm also trying to figure out for like projects that I'm working on, right, to bring it to the widest audience possible, what are the ways and the compromises that have to be thought about up front in order to get that to happen later? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, Elliot had already talked about some of kind of the groundwork you're laying to enable that. I guess I will say one thing. You know, we're not ignoring kind of some of the direction happening with Meta, right? That sounds kind of ominous. So I think we need to be prepared for a future where this is not the place to be distributing this type of story. And so besides, I think there's two elements, and obviously we do jump in or Nathan, but I think there's two elements. There's like headset distribution, and then there's the beyond the headset. And we're definitely thinking around social impact, which Wudua can talk a lot about. We're also thinking beyond just virtual spaces, but how can we integrate with physical, and what would that look like? So we're trying to build this strategy, and I'm just not sure how much we can talk about it yet. But looking at you, Wudua, but definitely that is the goal. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, what exactly what Yasmin said, and it's just building off of the great meetings that we had in Venice, and interest from not just festivals and platform partners, but also people who were looking to develop some kind of experience. And so we are rethinking the strategy. I mean, like rebuilding the strategy, I should say, just to accommodate for the current terms or current tides that are turning. But yes, I mean, like just know that, like I said, we are looking to make this as accessible as possible. And it also does lean into our tenants for Unity for Humanity grant that we just applied for. Doing more community talks and engaging the community and really making sure that, like I said, it's not just about showing it something that's a good time, but it's about awareness and building community, making a difference.
Yeah, on the technical side of things, we are building in Unity, and so we do have access to PC VR like Steam or different headsets, various XR platforms. There are compromises you have to make for each platform. Like PC VR, you can do whatever you want if you're tethered to a PC with a and graphics card, memory, and such. And then there's different constraints around, like if you were gonna, I'm just speaking hypothetically, but if you're gonna like support like the Quest 2 and PC VR and Apple Vision Pro, then you might want to have different sets of assets, different quality levels, things like that, and maybe some slightly different strategies that could affect the look dev of it. And then that also cascades out into like what you like in our case, like what's our volumetric capture solution going to be? Does it support these different platforms, and what are the gotchas with those? So there's a lot that goes into it. There's not a lot to prevent us hypothetically from publishing all over the place. It's probably more a matter of biz dev and funding and that kind of thing.
But overall, we also want to make it accessible. I mean, like we don't want it to be for just the super nerds like us or that are in the headsets.
Yeah.
So the experience itself will be a mix of passive. I mean, so we're not going to make the audience do a lot. So that will also help with the distribution across the other platforms as well.
We're at the top of the hour, and I wanted to ask one last question to Hugh, who wrote the book initially, and we've come this far to making the VR experience. Hugh, we talked around the kind of the chilling effects that are happening right now, a lot of the obey in advance for different organizations, institutions. It feels like a really important time to be telling the story, and you've written a book that is detailing everything that's happening. And I'd just love to hear some of your reflections of this translation from the book into now this VR and immersive experience, and how you see different parts of that story are going to be enabled to be told that were not able to be fully captured by the book, or maybe told in a new or different way. I'd love to hear some of your closing thoughts on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love history, but I'm also the kind of person who likes to sit and read 100 annual reports from an organization that disappeared in 1817, right? I get that a book, much as I love it, much as I think I wrote an exciting and vital and alive on the page book, is not the way most people want to consume history. It's not, especially if we're trying to get it into the hands of the youngest folks out there, the people who need these stories and these histories and these ancestors. Then we need to be telling the story in all different kinds of ways that are more exciting, more alive, and easier to access in certain ways. When books are being pulled out of libraries, right, kids can still access things on their computers and on their phones. So I think it's really important that we take these stories, into as many different realms as we can, especially right now when, as you pointed out, there is all of this censorship happening and this crackdown and these attacks on queer youth and particularly trans youth. I mean, I'm so excited that we're starting with a story that is so in the heart of kind of like where ideas about what it even means to be trans started to emerge. The 1890s, this community of performers and of folks who cross gender boundaries. So for me, it's really exciting to see this translated into not just VR, but into music, into dance, into the stuff that you can describe it with words, but you can't make someone feel it in the same way. And even just watching that 30-second clip, I got so excited. My partners, I have two partners, they both work on Broadway. And when we first were talking about this being translated into VR, they were a little nervous, and then told them it was going to be a musical, and they can be a little judgy because they work on Broadway. And then I played them the clip, and they were like, "Oh my God, I get it now." They were so excited by it. The music is so good, the dancing is so good, and it brings it all to such like vivid life. And that's what we need. We need not just these stories, but for these stories to feel good and rich and exciting, and to help us get through what is going to be a rough 4 years. So I think it's really great to see this.
Awesome. Well, Yasmin, Elliot, Michaela, Hugh, and Wadula, thanks so much for joining us here on stage to give a little bit more context for when Brooklyn Was Queer. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it might be good for the presenters to get off the stage because anything you may say afterwards is going to be amplified. So we'll go.
Thanks. I'll just jump on and say thanks to everyone for turning up here in VRChat, and also thanks to all of the folks who are watching on the live stream as well. We'll record the video and actually ship that later as well if anyone wants to catch up. But yeah, thanks again. If you do want to know more about the project, probably email is the best. So wbwq@newcanvas.co. Or reach out to Wadua or myself. But yeah, thanks again, everyone. Thanks very much, Kent.
Thank you, Kent. Thank you, guys.
Thank
you, Ken.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, friends. Bye.
Hi.
Well done, everyone. Well done, Ken.
Nathan, wait. I tried to jump from here. I'm Agnese from XR Master.
Hi, Nancy. How are you?